Hello and welcome to episode 22 of the TRUUMAN Podcast, the podcast designed to create a generation of self-defined men. Today, I'm joined by Steve Cardwell, the Thought PT. Steve, thank you so much for coming. How are you doing today?
Good, man. Good. The fact that it was light at 7 a.m. this morning has put me in a good mood, I have to say. But thank you so much for inviting me on. I've listened to the podcast, as you know, so great to be on here. And we've crossed paths on a few things, but we haven't quite nailed the date. So here we are.
No, yeah, it's been a bit of time in the making, but I'm glad to have you on. And yes, you're right. We are the air of spring is upon us, which is exciting, especially in the UK. Now, I'm going to start where I always start with the difficult question. But Steve, in your own words, what makes you a man?
It's such an interesting question, and I think, I probably would have had 17 iterations of this over the last 35 years. But I think probably the last couple of years has really helped me solidify that definition for myself, at least. And it comes down to whatever you want it to be, right? Like whatever you create it to be. I think I fell into the trap, which a lot of men do, trying to live up to what they thought a man was supposed to be, or what I should be doing as a man. And I think as a consequence of that, I never really, I was going to say fully accepted being a man, but I obviously have accepted being a man. But I think like that whole, I did like quite a lot of work on, my values and who I want to create myself to be in the world with my previous coach. And like one of the things that we talked about quite a lot was like judgments and stories that you have in yourself. And one of them for me was I had this story that I wasn't a real man, right?
Yeah.
Because I couldn't fix that light. I, cried at films. I decided some nights to not have a couple of beers. And all of that, I think, narrative over many years sort of built upon itself, where I had this story where I wasn't a real man. But by actually confronting that and going like, fucking what? Like, I am a real man. It's just, it's my version of that. So I think, very long way of saying, I believe like a man is whatever you want it to be, whatever you want to create it to be. And that's going to be very individual from man to man.
Yeah, great. I love it. It's I love the question. It's funny because you said you've listened to a few episodes, and even like I'm gonna clip this. I'm gonna go through all the episodes. It's gonna be like it's just gonna be the pauses that everyone makes before they answer.
I knew it was coming. Pause came.
It's great. It's like literally everyone's brain just goes, "What do I say here?" Yeah, it's interesting that you say it's taken however many years to finally accept it. I think on the last episode, I told Anthony that at the ripe old age of 32, I'm happily and comfortable to say that I'm a man and that I've basically been a big boy for the last sort of 18 to 31 was being I guess a teenager that's not really a teenager. Yeah, it takes some time. So you've talked about your journey as finding yourself as a man. Explain what that led to and a little bit more about the Thought PT and where that came from.
Yeah, I suppose this journey like has been quite a few years in the making. In my previous career, I like ran a production company. So I worked in like advertising and marketing for quite a few years, ran a few of my own businesses. And I think like a lot of men, when I've talked to them, once you get about 10 years into, your career, it's probably an early 30s thing as well, right? You start questioning a little bit of going like, do I want to be doing this in the next 10 years or is this it? And I think I had that question was sort of like floating around in my head for probably 4 or 5 years, but I sort of just beat it down, right? Like sort of it's fine, just head down, just keep going. Until it got to a point where I was having breakfast with my now wife, and it was my birthday, and she made it really nice and had cards and whatever, and brought out my breakfast, and I just burst out crying. And I don't think it was the omelette itself that made me cry. I think it was just just the pressure and stress that I've been going through and putting on myself ultimately, like over the last couple of years. It just sort of came and released in one sort of moment. And at that point, it was like, you hear people talking about it quite a lot of time, where the pain of staying the same becomes more than the pain of perspective, pain of change. And I was like, I need some help to do something about this. And I ended up like finding a coach. So like through the lens of work, right? Like I think a lot of people do, like, oh, if I change my job or if I change my career, then it'll all be better. And I definitely had that mindset 100%. Because ultimately it was affecting all aspects of my life.
Yeah.
So when I hired a coach, like I went through a bit of a process over a couple of months, and it really like had a massive impact on my life, both short term and long term. So from a short term perspective, it taught me to look at things from a slightly different perspective, and that was ultimately my choice. And actually, I've got so many thumbs up on videos over the last couple of days, I don't know what it is, but instead of thinking that I had no choice, actually everything was my choice, right? So I ended up staying in the same sort of job that I was doing, the same company that I was doing. I just had a radically different mindset, and perspective on it. And that sort of led me down the line to going, actually, you know what? A few years later, I'd like to, help people who are feeling the same as me. And the interesting part for me is when I was talking to friends about it, so especially guys, I told them that story. I told them, the things that I learned with my coach. I, listened to them. And the amount of friends that I had really deep, honest, open conversations with was unbelievable. So in comparison, I remember like a couple of friends were like, fucking hell, we haven't talked like that. And I've known you for like 20 years.
Yeah.
And it was just the fact that I had that conversation with them then sort of opened it up. So I think when I went into coaching, like it was with the lens of, helping men especially, be able to have these conversations and realize that like there is actually, lots of choices for you. There is an alternative to head down, just get on with it. It'll be all right when the kids are 18.
Yeah. Why do you think men are starting to have this enlightenment spark, shall we say? I think you're right. I think it's sort of happening early 30s. Maybe it's happening a little bit later, maybe a little bit early for some people. But
yeah.
Why now? Why do you think it's happening?
It's an interesting question. I suppose we talked about societal pressure of like what it is to be a man. I think like that in itself is changing, right? Like, so the narrative around men speaking, and you have some really high profile figures talking about it, right? Which grants a little bit of implicit permission to men as a whole to be able to do that. But I also think that like whether the conversations are actually happening in friendship groups in Stoke or in Belfast, I don't know. Like I think there's surface level Instagram, oh yeah, I'll do this or I'll read this self-development book, but I don't know whether the trickle-down effect is like truly on the ground yet. And that's just based on my thoughts and experience.
Yeah, I think it's still early days, right? I think people
Yeah, of
are
course it
having
is.
these,
Yeah, of
I
course
think
it is.
people are still having these thoughts, definitely. I think for me, it's the shift to that gender role. Like the provider role has changed significantly. Like it's too expensive to be a single income household. Let's put it that way in this economic turn. But that's one of the key things, right? It's opened it up to a little bit more freedom in what you choose to do. I think because you no longer just have to focus. It's like I can't quit my job because, like you said, it'll be all right when the kids are 18. It was a traditional thought, whereas now it's like, well, maybe we can tweak and change and sort of try different things. So yeah, it's interesting. I'm excited to see what's sort of next for men and what that looks like from a career point of view.
I think like one of the potentially negative consequences of that though is feeling the pressure to do it all, right? So feeling the pressure to be still and again, it might not be the sole breadwinner, but the leading breadwinner in the house, plus also, be a really hands-on present dad, plus, a loving, attentive husband, plus have an amazing rig because you go to the gym 3 times a week, plus prioritizing it, like there's a long to-do list, whereas the to-do list was considerably shorter before. So, and I think that leans into, I was talking earlier about like my version of what society was as a man. With a shift is a positive 100%, right? So you've got more choice. But one of the negative interpretations of that could be for men, oh shit, I have to do it all. Or I have to do all this really well. And they haven't. And again, that's very surface level, right? So that's a societal thing. So gone, oh yeah, no, I've seen this guy on Instagram and he earns 6 figures and he's like massively ripped and he does this and he does that. But actually, if you got down to the detail of that, you don't necessarily want that job and you don't necessarily want to be amazing at CrossFit. You like going and you're cycling and, you are a present dad. But it's like getting again, when I said what's my definition of being a man, it's like your own version of it. So again, it's like, and I suppose it's a new challenge for men to go, what is my new interpretation of a 2024 man?
Yeah, societal pressures are huge, right? I think it's one of the big reasons that I started doing this and started talking to people was to just sort of get an understanding of whether that was an issue for them. And it transpires that it is, right? Like everyone's Instagram and everyone's social is only the perfect moments. It's not, you're not going to put the argument or the example that you used. I imagine there may have been some photos of the cards and the omelette, but there won't have been a tear in the Instagram post of that day. So like, it's very obvious that it is the best parts of people's days, but for whatever reason, people gravitate to that and want to replicate that. I think I love the quote, "You can do whatever you want, but you can't do it all." Is one of my sort of favorite quotes. I don't really remember who said it because I think a lot of people butcher it and rehash it. I think I've also just done the same. But yeah, I think it's really important to want to grow and want to try new things. But is this a horrible way of saying it? But like within your boundaries to start with, like is that a harsh way of saying it? But it's sort of true, right? I don't know.
Yeah. I think there's an inherent thing with men to want to achieve more, right? I think it's built in there, right? It's like, what is next? If I settle, I'm not ambitious. I'm not fulfilling my potential. And I want more, right? Like I want to achieve more as well. But I think like one of the, you sort of said about not having it all. Like one of the things that I truly believe and like work on with people as well is like, if you can, get that focus and get that clarity on what you actually care about, right? Like what's important to you and pick, right? and prioritize, right? You can do it all,
Yeah.
but it's your version of it, right? So like my version of that is growing a coaching business. It's, picking up my daughter or dropping her off every day to nursery. It's going to the gym 3 times a week. It's being like a super attentive husband. It's calling my mum and dad every week in a video call with Pearl. It's like all of these things, but I built my life to be like that. And I've specifically consciously chosen to make those choices. And there's consequences of those choices, right? Of, I don't go out on Thursday nights and get hammered like I did for the first 10 years of my career in London, right?
Yeah.
Not to say I don't drink, but I'm just saying I don't do that. Or I spend less time replying on WhatsApp messages. I just call my friends instead because I think it's way more effective. So like making lots of little conscious changes to actually create a life where you can have your version of it all.
Yeah. There's a really nice way of putting it, your version of it all, because there's one of the stuff that I've sort of found with social and that sort of pressures is people just copy goals. So like, I want to earn 6 figures, and it's like, cool. Why? What are you going to spend it on? Where have you picked that number from? Like, you may do the maths, and you may need more. Like, it's just an arbitrary number, and it's obviously been used to sell many courses, let's say. But
many courses.
Yeah, it's just an arbitrary number. Or beach body ready in 12 weeks. Like, is that what you want to look like in 12 weeks? Have you thought, or is that just because you've been told that's what you need to look like? And I guess my question to that to you is, what's the first step about creating that pathway and creating those self-defined goals, in your opinion?
I'm going to answer your question, but I just want to pick up on a point you just said about the like beach body ready and all of that. That's cool. It's one of the interesting things that I've really found with men, and it's what I'm experimenting with at the moment, right? Is I know that what I offer, like from a coaching perspective for men, will help them, right? Like there's no doubt if they commit to it, it will help them. So like I'm really confident in that delivery, and I've got testimonials to back that up, etc., etc. But one of the interesting, I suppose, problems is getting men through the door. So, like, what is the thing that you say to them to get them through the door? So, like, you use the thing like beach body ready. Like, depending on what the delivery is and what it is, like, one provider on that could be, all right, this is a really, we'll smash it up at the start and, we'll work really hard. But actually, this is all about sustainability. This is all about long-term changing your nutrition so you don't have to go through these 12-week spikes. But, I know that that's what we've said in the tin, so we'll do that. Yeah. Whereas another one would be like, just smash a load of juice, eat 500 calories a day, and, run yourself to death on a cardio machine.
Yeah.
So there's it's an interesting debate. I actually had this with someone on LinkedIn the other day, was talking about with one-on-one coaching. He was like, oh, I'm really pissed off with, all these programs and people are saying achieve these goals or get these results in a certain period of time. It doesn't work like that. And my point of view on that is if I'm not coaching anyone, then I'm not helping anyone, right?
No, true. Yeah.
So I've got to say something. So I've got to package something up that I hypothesize will appeal to men. And when we're in the conversation, I've never had any problem with men opening up in conversations and one-on-one things. But the amount of men that actually reach out, I write specifically for men, and I still get more inbound women. Right? Like it's just a reality. Yeah. Or anyone that's reached out to me directly in a DM has never liked any of my posts ever.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that. That is the biggest thing that I hear from everyone in this space is everyone I work with just messages me randomly, and I've never seen them like anything. And it's like, how bizarre that. But I mean, we're going to go off on a tangent, but it's a good
We
tangent.
are, sorry, yeah.
No, but that's the whole point of a podcast, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is what is that like? Oh no, sorry. So this is my point, and I find it hilarious. So one of the first things that I set out to do was create a forum, and almost like a Haynes manual to mental health.
Yeah.
Because what I've found and what I've noticed with maybe older men or just men in general is like we will research how to do something. So, for example, if the car is broken or the IKEA furniture needs building, whatever, right? We will go and get the information from maybe a forum, maybe online, maybe the instructions. And then when it comes to the showing of it, we go, I built that. There's no like I seeked help and then created this. It's I built that. So it's like that. I fixed myself. Don't worry what I did in the background, but yeah, it's quite amusing, and yeah, it seems to be a very common trend that people are.
But there's no one giving you a gold medal for that, right?
No.
You know what I mean? Like there's no prizes for getting to your destination without help.
No.
Like you're just making it longer and harder for yourself ultimately.
Yeah, or you're secretly getting the help and you're not.
Yeah, exactly. And like I talk with that with my clients a lot of the time. I'm like, no one's gonna fucking pat you in the back for making this harder than it needs to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're totally right. It's super interesting, and I'm like, hands up, I don't have the solution to it, right? But that's one of the things that really interests me about this space. You know, experimenting, finding what is right for, and again, like I talked about, it's all finding out what's right for you. But generally speaking, what is the thing that gets people through the door? Like one of my examples that I use all the time is like park run, and park runs like advertised as come for a 5K run.
Yeah.
Right. Like, oh, come down to the park, have a run, do some exercise. But really the benefit is running with loads of other people, right? And having that community aspect and talking to people. If you're running that 5K not with those people, you're not going to get the buzz and energy and everything that you get from it. That's that combination really, like that does the trick. Again, I don't know this, but my hypothesis is if you advertise it as, oh, here's a community get together.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, we're doing a run. They wouldn't be as successful as they are. So it's like that nuance of what you're actually saying and being confident in the delivery will give the people the benefit of what is said on the tin to begin with, but then also what you think they need, right?
Yeah, it's well, we both have a bit of a marketing background, so for me, it's just been hilarious to try and like crack this. I'm like, how do you get a funnel going when they don't even engage in anything? It's been quite amusing, but there's things to do, right? And that's the beauty of video. View still counts towards the algorithms. But yeah, you're right. It's the byproduct, and it's like, how do you do that? I think I can't remember his name. It's a bigger guy with like curly hair. He talks quite a bit about marketing. He seems to be all over TikTok at the moment.
Alex Hormozi?
No. As in bigger, as in fat,
not jacked.
No, yeah, the other kind of big.
Yeah.
He's an older guy as well. Not Hormozi. He's a marketing exec of some description, but he talks about all of these like weird nuances in marketing. Like I watched one this morning and it was like why drive-throughs don't work in Germany, and it's like because 60% of Germans see their car as a temple and like will never allow food in it, so you just they just don't have drive-throughs in Germany, which is like, I mean, you've got to know that, right, to do that. And then I think he worked for KFC. And like in South Africa, they weren't selling any KFC. So he increased the price to make it more of a luxury item. And then they started selling more. Like really bizarre, like marketing tricks. He's quite interesting. I'll find him and send it to you.
Please do.
To look at. But
your point about like, I know we weren't necessarily talking about that, but like actually country and market specific as well, I think is an interesting point, right? Again, as a massive generalization, British men, I would say, are less expressive than American men,
Yeah,
right? So therefore, it's like the whole who you talking to. If you try and talk to too many people, then you're talking to no one. So British, like I suppose the problem we're sort of talking about as well is like it gets even more specific depending on the country that you're talking about, because
yeah,
actually different populations will respond to different things, which again is another interest, or even regional, right, as
yeah,
well. I've even found that like one of the things that holds a lot of men back in businesses as well is like talking about them. I'm like, you
yeah,
run the business, but you're scared to actually tell people what the business is. And I had that, right? Totally. And like when I got into a couple of clients from like Northern Ireland who are like, Jesus, they're like, we'll never talk about the thing. It took a lot of encouragement and a lot of coaching to get them out of that versus someone, that's from a different background in London or whatever is slightly more enthusiastic. So it's so nuanced
yeah,
areas, people, background. And I think that's one of the challenges as well, right?
yeah, definitely. I think when you said just to like circle all the way back, you were like, I don't know what the golden ticket to it is. I think the golden ticket to all this is more of me and you, more people talking
Yeah,
about
yeah.
like actually having conversations and doing it,
Mm,
because not every man is going to resonate with you, and not every man is going to resonate with me or all the other people that I've spoken to on this. They're
mm.
going to find their pockets and find that community, and it's like we just need more people doing it
Yeah, yeah,
because people will resonate with different people.
totally.
Like you say, regional, social, economical, all of these are serious factors that you're just not going to get on with everyone if you're deluded if you think everyone likes you.
Yeah.
Um,
Which
yeah,
is a hard thing to take, though, right? Like, which is a difficult thing to take because there's that innate thing built into you that you want people to like you,
yeah,
and that people pleasing tendency is a hard one to shift. And I still feel it and I talk to people about it every day.
yeah,
And I've worked on myself for multiple years on that specific thing. So even doing the reps, I think like one of the things I've realized with a lot of these things around, having the courage to talk about yourself or people pleasing or all of these stories and traits that we tell ourselves is never going to go away. It's just going to be less.
yeah,
Right? Like it's never going to disappear. There's never going to be that sting when someone writes a negative comment on a post.
yeah, 100%. I mean,
It's
this
just
is,
not going to affect you as much if you work on yourself for it.
yeah, and that goes to everything, right? I
Yeah,
think
totally.
you'll explain this a little better than me, but that's sort of where the brandings come from, right? Is like if you
Yeah.
go to the gym, it doesn't get easier, right? The weights just get heavier, or the distance gets, you just go quicker, right? So
Hmm.
you're still working on yourself. It's not a fix, and that was my original conversation around. So this all started with me with like a mental health episode, and like
Yeah,
me
yeah,
going through like a crisis of um, just shite just falling down on me in large
yeah.
quantity. Um, and I decided not to go down the traditional like counseling route and decided that I was just going to focus on bettering myself, because I felt if I was better as a person, I would naturally have better mental health. And if I
Hmm.
didn't, then I would go for the counselor. That
Yeah,
was my logic behind it. So the byproduct was the better mental health. Um, but yeah, it just doesn't get easier. I still have days where I'm
yeah,
like, if I'm brutally honest, I didn't get up till 10 o'clock this morning because I was just in bed. Like, I feel like a piece of shit. But eventually I got out of bed and
yeah,
we're having this, and I'm having a productive day, but
yeah,
it
yeah.
doesn't get easier. It's just, like you say, it's the practice. But why don't you talk about that? Why don't you talk about your branding and why you sort of create that synergy?
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that as well. It's really, I think like saying things like that really helps, right? As well, to go like, oh, you've done X amount of these episodes. You're talking about mental health and all of these. You've, self-coached yourself through this, but yet there's still some of those days, right? It's just, it gets better. It's just, there isn't this is the final destination. And the reason why, the Thought PT, I tried to use that branding was like, people understand what a personal trainer is, right? But there's multiple different definitions and interpretations and opinions on what a coach or life coach is. And for me, even, right, like, it's like, even though I am one, it still took me a long time to go, what am I actually saying to people, right? Because there's so many things out there. And I think like one of the reasons why I wanted to use that is because men especially know what a personal trainer is, right? So instead of going to the gym and improving yourself physically, you can come to a coach and work on your mental fitness, right? Like, work on the things that are important to you, which and I'm not here to do it for you. You have to do it yourself, but I'll guide you. I'll use my experience exactly the same way as a PT will do. We'll come up with a program bespoke for what you want to do, leaning on a lot of principles that I know have worked ultimately. And that's, I like the term like mental fitness versus mental health, right? Because also health implies binary, right?
Yeah.
Healthy, unhealthy, when actually no one's binary anything. And like, you can always get fitter, right? There's no like optimum fitness.
Yeah. I like that too. Mental health and curing. That was like the big thing, maybe. It felt like that was what people were getting towards, was like, how do I cure my mental health? It's like, no, you don't. So I think if I was to do a campaign, it would be to change it from mental health to like mental fitness, or a different terminology, most definitely, because the wording's not right, I don't think.
I think that language makes a big difference as well, right? Like, there's a lot of like what I talked about at the very start, having these stories and narratives in your head. Like, your words create your reality ultimately. So when you're using things like, I've got bad mental health, the thing that people immediately go to is, all right, well, I need to take something or do something because of that. When actually, if you went, I'm unfit, it's a completely different thing, right? Like, your mind goes, oh, well, what do I need to do to sort that out, rather than like, how can someone fix me or cure me? And I think, like, I was listening to something as well around, might have been, I remember it was Chris Williamson maybe, but like, talking about the use of like therapy speak or language let me think of the best way to articulate this. Like, language that would be associated with actual mental health problems and associate them with things that aren't actual mental health problems. So, as in, when someone upsets you, saying that you've got trauma, right? Or when, I can't think of another good example off the top of my head, but, or like going, oh yeah, I've got really bad anxiety, when you're just worried about something.
Yeah.
And I think it, like, again, the health, like, all of that sort of elevates to the point of like, can I personally do something about this, or do I need a pill, or do I need someone to cure me, which was a really good term that you went there, when actually, like, a lot of these things, of course, there are people that are clinically depressed, right? I'm not saying that that's not true, and have like severe anxiety, and medication will help them. I have friends who medication has been like a massive savior to them. But for the majority of people, like, if you go back to your own personal responsibility on it, like, you can do something, right? Like, you did it, right?
Yeah.
You did it. Like you can do something, and whether you get some help to do it or not, like there's no, again, there's no prizes, right? There's no
No,
prizes
definitely.
for it. So
Yeah.
like, someone who works hard in the gym on their own and is motivated and disciplined to do it versus someone with a PT, they're going to look the same,
Yeah.
right? They're going to be the same help. Just that person might want help, right? And that's sort of it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the doing it yourself, like that was my ethos, was I'll do it myself first, and if it still doesn't work, then I'll seek help,
Mm.
because I think it's important to, I guess, burden that responsibility a little and just sort of say, maybe I can do a bit better. Maybe I can try something myself first, because it's not. And again, you're right. There is a small. This is the honest truth of it. There's a small percentage of people that are clinically depressed and have severe anxiety and have major mental health problems. And if I'm being selfish to my tax pound, shall we say, those are the people that need the support and need to be speaking to doctors and people in that space, and potentially taking medication. Whereas us as a society, and the majority of us, need to take a little bit of responsibility ourselves first before putting that pressure essentially on the state, or depending on where you live in the world, right? Like, it is important to give it a go first, because yeah, you don't want to be dependent on something that you don't need, right? I think is probably the best way of.
Yeah, totally. And like actually by taking that responsibility and that agency, it makes you feel a lot more empowered in your life, right?
Yeah.
I think like that's one of the, the benefits that I've seen with my clients and myself, like going through coaching. Again, I talked earlier about shifting perspective. Like you can look at that and going like, oh fuck, it's all on me. Or you can look at that going like, yeah, amazing. It's all on me. Like I can create the life that I want to do.
Yeah.
Like I want to have. Like I can work this whole thing out. Great. Like it's for me. But I think there's a lot of narrative around, is someone else's fault or victim mentality rather than actually looking at yourself and going like, what can you do about your situation at the moment? And yeah,
Yeah.
like get someone to help you work it out. Or there's a million books, there's a million YouTube videos, right? Like do something, follow one step to begin with, and then see where it takes you. And if you want help, need help, however you want to define it, then reach out, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think Jordan Peterson says that if you really want to feel like what it's like to be you, is to sit on the end of the bed and actually have that real deep conversation of like, am I happy with where I am and like the man that I am? And that is really powerful, and I think it works for the right type of man. But what I want to touch on, which a lot of people that I've spoken to have also touched on, is the change and the fact that it's not defined. And I think this sort of just moves away from that.
Yeah.
Taking requesting help and then seeking help, rather than maybe going down a medical route, is that when you have control over it, it can be so much more fluid. So you said like you turned 30 in your 30s and you started to have those conversations with yourself. You might turn 40, 45 and go, actually, I've seen my daughter grow up and now I want to go and do this side of career, and I want to go back into an office and I want to do X, Y, and Z. It can be, or I don't want to live in the UK anymore. Like when you have control over it, those goals and things can change, because you're the writer of your own script at that point, right?
Yeah, totally. And I think like a lot of the things that help me and I work with people on is like, what is that, right? Like, whether it's a Jordan Peterson sit at the end of the bed, or whether it's like, what do you actually want? Because we don't really spend very much time thinking about that, like having that space to think about it. Like one of the main value drivers of coaching or me hiring a coach or whatever, like the coach could say fuck all for an hour. It's having that hour in the diary
Yeah.
to go, oh yeah, you're reflecting on your life for this hour, right? Like, as in you're choosing what to do next. You're talking about specific things that are going on for you. And unless you create that, unless you carve that out, it does not happen. Like, whether it's with a coach or not with a coach, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. But like actually going, what do I want? What do I care about? And getting really clear on that. Unless you do that, it's very difficult to, get to a level of fulfillment ultimately, right? And be comfortable with where you are. Because how do you know where to go if you don't know where you are?
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
What would you suggest to someone who's going, yeah, okay, I like this. I like what you're saying. I think I want to think about it. Like, how do they start? What do you, like? Because I think for me, my problem with this was that it was a catastrophic experience in my life that made me go, I need to actually think about this properly. And like, I've spoken about this openly. I had suicidal thoughts, and like the other side of that is absolutely horrendous. Like, I wouldn't want to do that, but to have them at that time. And I've spoken to men since, and it's a lot more common than you think. Just thoughts as well. Like, it's crazy. And I don't want to live in a world where men make this decision when it's an extreme. So I know it's a hard question again, but that's what this podcast is about, Steve. We just do hard questions. What do you think? How do you like? What do you do?
I suppose like I'd answer that in two ways. So first one, again, thank you for sharing that, because again, super helpful, right? Like, I personally can't say I've ever had those thoughts, right? So I don't know if I can relate fully, but sort of when you were talking about thoughts, like one of the things that like massively helped me is having the realization that like what you think is not necessarily what you believe, right? So like, just because you think it doesn't mean to say that that is truly what is in there, like what you think is important. So like, to give a real example of this, right? I've got a 2-year-old. Regularly, a thought will pop up going, fuck me, I wish I didn't have kids. Right?
Yeah.
And it pops up, and like, I said this in an event that I ran with a load of dads in it, and they were like, once a day? No, well, Jesus, that's like 10 times a day for me, right? But I don't actually believe that, right? Like, I know that my life is much richer, and like, there's no way I would ever trade my life for one that she wasn't in now. So by doing that, it's like almost like you're an observer of your own thought, right? And you choose what to do with that thought. So like, when you're in a crisis, right? Again, and this isn't me like relating it to suicide, because I don't have any experience of that, but like, when I suppose the best way to articulate this is like, I've struggled to apply that framework. So struggled to go, I'm the observer of this. I don't believe this, when I haven't been taking care of myself. Right. So like, I haven't been exercising, eating properly. I've been drinking, like I've been away on a stag do or something, right? Like, where you're having an amazing time, right? But then when you come back, it's like the Monday, it's like you worry about Tuesday's work. It's like, oh shit, is that the right business thing? Is doing that? And multiple people that I've talked to, this is when they do that. So I think the answer to that bit would be, you don't have to believe everything you think. You're actually an observer of your own thoughts. So if you can detach yourself from that, then that really helps. But also be aware that like, when you're not looking after yourself, your ability to be able to do that will be lessened a lot. So when you're putting yourself into those scenarios, like, one of the first things you could actually do is like, take care of yourself, right? Like, move, eat well, go for a walk, just do simple things. And once you start doing that, then you can get back that element of control and observe your thoughts impartially, rather than believe in everything that pops into your head. Does that make sense? Is that
Yeah, it did to me. Yeah, I just want to touch on something because I think it's really important for you as well. Is how you deal with stress and what that leads to. Is so basically, I'll share this in more depth with you outside of this because it's quite well, it's not intense, but essentially, there's a report been done that most male suicide is actually linked to a buildup of stressors, which is your body basically fills up and then it can't deal with it anymore. What happens? The suicide is just one of the options that the brain chooses. So burnout is another one. So like, depending on how well you deal with your buildup of stressors or whatever has ticked your stressor, so to speak, is almost not predetermined, but it within your makeup is how you deal with it. So you might just burn out. Like we might go through exactly the same two things. And my thought process is I'm going to do something harmful to myself. And yours is you just collapse and you're just like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like there's other extremes to it. So violence, sexual or aggression are also this responsive nature of buildup of stresses. And that's what I've been learning through this, which I think is really interesting because when you look at it like that, from that perspective, it's really easy to have a conversation with someone else because we both now understand that we both built up our stresses and that we've reached an extreme. So whatever our brain decided to do at that point is an irrelevance, and ironically, it's actually the same. So we've just managed to fill up our stresses, and that's the common ground, and that's more important than. Like I'm not trying to. It's not like there isn't a one up or like I can't relate to that because you can relate to that because you have gone through something that built up your stresses to a point where you went, I don't want to do this job anymore. Like that is what happened at that point for you, right? So it's more common than you think. Like we have more commonalities. It's just that was how my brain decided to process that particular build up of stresses. But I'll share the report. It's interesting.
Yeah, no, please do. I suppose the other side, it was a bit of a two-parter I was going to answer, but the other side I was thinking, like from a practical perspective, like what do you actually do, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I suppose this is probably for someone that isn't as far as suicidal thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Like I think is what I'm maybe. I don't know.
I'll tell you what I did.
Yeah, maybe, you can tell me after. But I suppose like one of the things that I've done and I've worked with other people on as well is like doing a really super simple exercise about like where in each part of your life, where are you at the moment, right? So like narrowing it down super simply to like work, family, friends, wealth, health, whatever's the most important 7 or 8 things to you. And the way I like to articulate this with guys as well is like, where are you on the pitch and where are you watching from the stands, right? Because the game's playing anyway, right? Your game of life is playing.
Nice.
So where are you actually taking control of it? And where are you sort of just like letting it pass by? And I've sort of noticed this with like men and their social lives and when they've got kids, right? Fun with kids, like Max Dickens, like Billy No Mates, like posts about this all the time. But it's sort of outsourcing a lot of your social activities to your wife, right? So you're sort of just watching in the stands. You know, I had a conversation with someone on Friday. I was like, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, I'll find out tomorrow when the wife tells me. I'm like, fucking hell, great. Good luck to you. But basically the exercise is sort of going almost like scoring it, going, you know, in your family life, in your relationships, in your health, whatever, scoring out of 10 and being really honest is like, where are you on the pitch? So where are you taking active control and where are you watching from the stands? And small things you can do, right, is like just shifting that from the stands to playing and just picking a tiny, tiny action to do it. And actually, I think like I'm a really massive believer in tiny tweaks like make massive impact, right? It's not the big thing that makes the impact. It's not the shiny new job. It's not the, oh shit, I've got the car outside. It's not the house. It's actually, being really clear on what you want and making lots of little changes to make those happen. And actually, a lot of it is taking out lots of things to make that happen, right? Actually removing a lot of things. But if we're talking about this particular exercise, it's just picking a couple of things you can do. And some of them are so small when I've done this with people, right? And some of them are so small with me. I did it with someone a couple of weeks ago, and he was like, "Oh yeah, really don't have control over my finances. I'm not really sure what to do about it." And I'm going, "Well, what could we do? But like, what is the thought that's coming in?" He's like, "Oh yeah, well, I've got this money sitting here, and I haven't even bothered to open a savings account, or haven't done this. I might do investing." I was like, "All right, hold on, just open up a savings account, right? Like literally do that."
Yeah.
And go away and do it. And then he came back next week. He's like, "Oh, it's good. I can see the interest coming in already." And it's actually those like immediate small wins then put you in a more positive mindset. So, and another client's like, our relationship isn't with his wife is like, it's okay. But, I know that I let her arrange all the dates and do whatever. I've been thinking about like this theater, the show, that she wants to see at the theater, but I just haven't got around to booking the tickets there. I had this conversation for like 10 minutes. And he goes, "I know when I get off the call, like, I'm just not going to book it." And I was like, "Well, just fucking book it then in the last 5 minutes, right?" He spent the last 5 minutes of our call just booking the thing. And yeah, he's like, "Oh yeah, it was an amazing night. She really like appreciated that I hadn't done that."
Yeah, nice.
So actually all of those like tiny things like really make a big impact. So it's like, what can you do to give yourself a small win, which like, starts the momentum, starts the shift from like going, "Oh shit, I'm stuck," that negativity spiral, to the, "Oh right, no, actually I'm taking a bit more personal control, and here's a little win for me to keep going," and having a bit of experiential evidence for my mind to go, "All right, no, actually, we've shifted here, Steve. Like, let's go down this path rather than this path."
Yeah, nice. It's pretty much what I did.
Yeah.
It's a short version. Yeah, 10,000 steps, which is like I was in horrendous shape. That was another element of it.
Yeah.
But 10,000 steps. I mean, at uni, I was training twice a day, and I was rowing for the university. So like the difference in those two things are not comparable from where I was at, but like it was literally just do that. And like we had the smallest flat. It was tiny, like, but at the doors all opened up, so you could you had like kitchen lounge, door into the bedroom, door into the bathroom, and then a door out of the bathroom back into the kitchen essentially. Mm-hmm. And it was like, I think I'd done it for maybe 5 or 6 days, and it must have been a Sunday probably, because I probably did start on a Monday or something stupid like that. And I looked down at my watch, and I think I had like 6,000 steps, and it was like 10 o'clock at night, and I just walked a loop, just went round and round and round. Much annoyance of my partner at the time, although she laughed to start with, and then she was like, "Are you actually going to do like 4,000 steps round the flat?"
Like that.
And it was like, she's like, "You'll burn a hole in the carpet." I was like, "I'll go the other way in a bit," but I did do it, and like that was genuinely the first step to it. And this morning, I think I just touched on it, which was like not a great morning. I have a habit now, a routine, and it's like, it's really simple. Like, it's get up, make the beds, go for a shower, brush my teeth, put some moisturizer on, do my hair, put some aftershave on, get dressed. And like, I do not set a time limit on that. Like, I don't say I need to be done by 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. or 6 a.m. It's just, that is it. That is the start of my day once I've done that. So like, even though I was in bed this morning and I was like, I don't want to get up, I knew as soon as I'd done that mini cycle, I was like I'd started my day. And when I first did that, there were times that I did that at like 4, 5, 6, 7 p.m. Like it was the last thing that I did, but like it still felt like I started the day. And ironically, those like weird like 3, 4, 2 hours before bed again, because nothing wears you out more than spending all day in bed. I was productive. Like that's what is crazy about it, and it's really weird. But yeah, the smallest thing when it's no matter what position you're in my opinion anyway, or is so helpful, and it definitely like you say, it creates that path, doesn't it? It's like that.
Yeah.
You talk about looking at your own thoughts. You could almost look over to the left and see the path that they could have gone down. Like if I didn't get out of bed this morning and I cancelled this podcast, like where's that man going compared to I got up and we've done this today? Like it's completely different path already, and it's just two things. So yeah, I agree with you. I think you're right.
I think you a really interesting point on like your habit and routine there as well. I think one thing that I've leaned heavily into, I talked about making lots of little changes or taking lots of things away, actually, is the way I'm looking at it now. But got balloons now.
Amazing.
Making it.
Where's that from?
No, yeah, this has literally happened to me, and like I don't know, maybe it's my sentence. For audio listeners, balloon just walked up in front of me on video. But like once you've sort of decided, that path and taken the action, you don't need to think about it again for a while, right?
Yeah.
Like as in, just focus on that. So therefore, make it as easy as possible for yourself to be able to achieve those. So create the routines, the systems, the structures to be able to do it. And like, I probably had this opinion, and a lot of other people will have it. Like, oh yeah, but your life's like scheduled or restricted. I'm like, well, no, I'm basically deciding and creating the space to do the things that I actually want to do, or else I won't do them, right? So leaning on like outsourcing your willpower to systems and structures and routines is massively, massively helpful, right? Like massively helpful. And it means that you don't have to make decisions in the moment. You don't have to question whether you're doing the right thing. You just do it, right? Yeah. And like I've sort of upped my level of my philosophy this year is like I'm turning pro at everything that I'm doing. So I've like upped my level of like systems to help myself, right? Because I've got my version of have it all. There's a lot of things to get through.
Yeah.
So I lean on those systems to be able to do it. And because of that, like I actually texted my wife earlier. I was like, fuck me, my days are like boom, flying through. But it's all full of amazing stuff, right? Like today it's sort of I got up, look after Pearl for an hour, did a workout, got ready, had some deep work for a couple of hours working on my business because I've created my diary to not be like lots of calls and try and work all of that. I was like, I work better in the morning, so I protect those couple of hours. I had some breakfast, then went back, engaged on like my LinkedIn stuff, went for a walk, come back here, have some lunch, jump on a coaching call, go pick up Pearl. And I haven't had to think about any of the things, right? Like I haven't had to like think, oh, what am I doing today?
Yeah.
Because I know, because I've already decided, because I went, these are the things that are important to me, and this is what I want to prioritize in my life. So I'll create the system and structure to be able to do it. And then I just did it, right? And then you get to the end of the day and you're like, oh yeah, well, yeah, great. I got everything done. There wasn't any time to procrastinate. There wasn't any time to multitask, and in a good way, right? Because I've actually spent my time on doing everything that I actually wanted to do. So I think it's like a really interesting point, like, and whatever works for you, right? Like, again, it's like, it could be as simple as whenever you get up, you've got those 5 things, no matter what time you get up at, as a start, right? And then you start leveling up once you go along, you add something else in once you've done, if we use the gym analogy again, right? Like once you've done the reps of things, once you get stronger at things, someone coming to me for the first time, I wouldn't say copy my
Yeah.
schedule, right? Like that's crazy. It'll never work. It's like first time going into the gym and racking 100 kilograms on a squat rack. Like you might get to about here, but you're not going to go back, right? And the whole point is not doing that. It's sustainable levels, but the principle, I think, of really getting clear, deciding on what you want, taking those steps and creating systems and structures to be able to actually implement them from yourself and make it as easy as possible is one that I like really, really believe in.
Yeah, I was that person. I was the person who would say you're scheduling your life and like, but I'm grateful for it because it's definitely helped. I completely agree. So, and when you start, like obviously everyone's different and everyone's coming from different points, but if you're coming from a deep dark place and a desperate place, it may sound fickle and tiny and small, but just pick one thing and just do it every day. Like you might be like, oh, why am I doing this? But the fact that you're even asking that shows that it's already working and you're already ready to go up something else. But it's like, just pick something and just stick to it consistently. And it can be as stupid and as silly as like brushing your teeth, like to start, depending on where you're at on the scale. Like how mentally fit you already are. To use your analogy.
Totally. And like you're totally right. Like we disconnect the very small actions with the big goal, right? So like a lot of the way that I work with clients now, goal setting, the way I work myself is like setting this big goal out, right? And it's almost like on a different sheet. Then you go, what are the ways that I could get there? So it's almost like you've got your goal here and you've got like projects, right? So say it's, I don't know, I want to lose some weight. It's like, what are the ways that I could do that? I could like go on and get loads of recipes from Jamie Oliver's website and buy the food. I could get a muscle food delivery. I could hire a PT. I could go to the gym. I could go for anyway. List them all out, right? Projects, and then you go, right. Well, which one do I hypothesize will get me there the quickest, or which one do I think is the most important? Pick one, right? Pick one, and then take that to a different sheet, right? So you can't even see the I want to lose weight and go, what actions do I need to take? Okay, so it's go on a walk 10,000 steps a day, right? Is our thing. Okay, what actions do I need to take? Well, my trainers are a bit shit and I like have like sores when I do that. So maybe like buy a pair of trainers. I don't want to be walking around my living room like Lewis, the crazy bastard. So like maybe I'll plan some walks. Like where's the place to walk? Oh yeah, I haven't been able to find the time to schedule this in and work, so I need to put it in my diary. And then it comes to like literally all you're doing is putting a 30-minute slot in your diary for a Tuesday morning. And that's the action that you take that will ultimately lead to you losing weight.
Yeah.
But if you just took that action, your mind would be like, how the fuck does this connect? Like me sitting on my phone on, Gmail, putting this in, connects to me losing weight. No, it doesn't. But it does, right? But it does. And I think like having that, like realizing that and just like once you get down to there, committing to it, having the consistency and just taking the actions repeatedly. If you can do that over a period of time and make it easy for yourself, right? By doing all those systems and structures, then the results will come. And then you've got the bank of experiential evidence, right? Then you're not going into the gym for the first time. You've got some bar in the weight. Then you can put some more on it and keep progressing from there.
Yeah, definitely. Amazing. Awesome, Steve. I want to thank you so much for your time. I'm going to leave you with the final sentence. So where can people find you and any final thoughts that you want to stick on the end of this podcast?
Yeah, no, that's been really fun. I've enjoyed it. I've liked the energy.
Nice.
Yeah, it's been fun. And yeah, really good to have a conversation. And like you said, I think having these conversations is, the way to probably unlock more of it is the way to unlock more of these conversations, right? So I think if you would benefit from having one of these, then try and find the courage to have it with a friend or whoever, because actually in both of our experiences, by doing that, that gives that other person the permission and unlocks it for them as well. So it will have a much more deep effect than you just being able to share what you want. So I definitely do that. And yeah, you can find me, like my website's methodpt.com, and you can find me on LinkedIn. So Steve Cardwell, where I like write loads of stuff. I haven't quite got on the Instagram yet. It's my prioritization is I need to be able to do the reps on social and LinkedIn before I do on Instagram. So, but yeah, you can find me in those two places.
Amazing. Thanks once again.
Cool.
See you, Steve.
Thanks, Liz. Cheers, mate.